Awesome. Welcome to Stories and Conversations with Rahel this Wednesday evening. It's a cold Wednesday evening. It's raining outside. So hope you have your hot mug of chocolate and you're ready for this conversation. Today, it's going to be another powerful conversation around this series that we are doing, No Shape November, where we are focusing on men and mental health. And today's topic is all about career and entrepreneurship, how men make money, and the struggles that they face, the silent struggles that they face, especially with all the societal pressure to be providers, to be strong, even when things are not going their way. And I know one statement that was shared, and I saw it on social media somewhere, that entrepreneurship is akin to 1,000 ways to die. So you can only imagine what men go through, especially when they're building their organizations, when they're building themselves, when they're building their careers. So definitely this is a very timely conversation, and I'm really, really glad to have two gentlemen join me. Dr. Moses Macharia, my friend, who we have been doing this together since last week. And I hope you actually joined last week, or you watched the replay of the live that we did last week around the general health, mental health concerns that face men in Africa and generally, right? And if you haven't, it's on our YouTube page, Stories and Conversations with Rahel. Please go and watch it, because Dr. Nelson and Dr. Moses shared such amazing insights and some of the ways that we can start supporting men in our environment to speak out more than they are right now, because we know men don't speak out as often as women do, right? So we need to support our men, and we need to have them healed so that they can be the men that they need to be, the leaders that they need to be. So we all know Stories and Conversation is about untold stories, motivational stories, conversations for change. So this is one of the conversations. And I am joined today by, again, Dr. Moses Macharia, who's a therapist, a psychologist who's very passionate about mental health and emotional health, and definitely a representative for all the men out there. So karibu sana, Dr. Moses. And we have a special guest today, Paul Mwirigi, my friend, an entrepreneur. And just to read a little bit about him, he's a consummate professional, a passionate marketing communication professional with 14 years of experience managing local, regional, and international brands. And he's such a firm believer in the power of communication to change lives and impact communities. So definitely he's the right person to have on here to have this conversation. So, I mean, Dr. Moses, please, if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know you shared a bit about yourself in the last conversation, but tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurship journey. Because you've been in this space for a while now. So let us know, who you are in terms of being an entrepreneur and anything else that you did not share last time.
Beautiful. Good evening. This is an amazing session that we are having here today. My name is Moses Macharia, and I'm a mental health practitioner, particularly in the area of employee wellness, and also a trauma specialist. The conversation today, it's quite interesting if you're tuning in, if you're joining wherever you're dialing from, because it's something that we all go through. And as an entrepreneur out and out, I have experienced failures. I have experienced good wins. In those moments when you have a partner and then you split ways, what do you do? And it's part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing and walking this journey with entrepreneurs and walking this journey with career men and women, helping them navigate through various issues that they navigate through in their lives. So it's an amazing, amazing conversation. And I would request that don't change the dial. Don't change the channel. Stay here. Stay with us today. All right. Karibu sana.
Awesome. Welcome, Dr. Macharia. Then for Paul Mwirigi, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your presence. So maybe tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurship journey, how long it has been, how interesting it has been, and then we can get right onto the conversation.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rahel. It's a pleasure to be here and also join Dr. Macharia and just discuss as men or boys what's going on, especially from a mental health point of view. So thank you for introduction, Rahel. I am first and foremost, I call myself a marketing communication servant. So I basically live for brands, live for reputation, live for everything around public relations, marketing, digital. Yeah, so basically, I'm into the business of helping people and brands position themselves in the marketplace and also manage those reputations as they're positioning themselves. So I run a company called Capital One Group. We are operating in Uganda and also in Kenya, and employing and working with over, I think now almost 40 something brands in the last 5 years of operations that we've basically been pushing. So my history with entrepreneurship started at a very early age. So in my secondary school, in middle school in Kenya, I used to write love letters for my friends in high school who never used to be so gifted, in poetry and stuff like that. So I used to charge, some little pocket money which used to go to buying bread when I was in middle school. So that was my first experience in entrepreneurship. I basically used to sell a service which is writing. So yeah, writing poetry, writing love letters. So let me just say that I paved way for very for very many guys in high school. After that, when I was in uni, I used to run clubs, and running clubs is not easy. So there was an aspect of trying to make ends meet. As you're running the clubs and everything. So again, there were a lot of ideas that I put from an entrepreneurship point of view into those clubs that I was running. So just trying to be self-sustaining, so to speak. After that, when I was done with my university, I went into employment, but even when I was employed, because of my skill set and the networks and connections that I had made, I was finding myself consulting quite a lot, which gave me encouragement to actually go ahead and start Capital One Group. So that's my journey so far. I've mainly been in the service sector. I've not tried anything entrepreneurship to do the product or to do the agriculture, but hopefully one day I will. Yeah, so that's my journey so far. Next year.
Wow, you have such an extensive experience. So definitely, again, you're just the right person to have this conversation with. So thank you for being here. And for everyone who's joining us, karibuni sana, welcome. If you're joining us from the diaspora, welcome. If you have any questions that you already have in mind, please put them on the chat, either on YouTube or here on Zoom. And if you watch this later on, please feel free to still drop your questions and I'll forward them to Dr. Moses or Paul. So let's get into the conversation. So the way I'll do it is I'll ask some questions and then we'll have the gentlemen answer these questions. And as I said, if you have any that you're already thinking about, please share them with us. So, Dr. Moses, as we start this conversation, do you mind sharing with us some of the challenges that men face in their careers or their as they navigate their career journeys, entrepreneurship journey, that have been normalized, right? Because what we learned last week is a lot of these challenges have been normalized, especially in the African society, right? And then I'll bring in another aspect, the biblical teachings. You know, Africa is largely about religion, faith, and all that. And there's this one element that keeps being pushed to men, even when they're, you know, when they're young, as they're coming up in their careers, as they come up as young men, about provision, being providers. So, what are some of the challenges that men face as they navigate their careers and in entrepreneurship as they figure out this provision area?
Amazing question. As you shared this question, I think some of the things that were coming top of mind, or someone who's probably diving into an entrepreneurship journey, I'm imagining Paul started his entrepreneurship journey actually at Meru School. And this is way earlier, you know. He's trying to do something to make some sense of end meet. And that was his first experience. But guys who are coming into, you know, starting out their careers or getting into entrepreneurship, one of the things that has been normalized is how we as men get to steal time from the people that we love, mostly our family, the people that we love, our children, you know, our parents. And that causes a relationship strain. Coming into the therapy room, you see guys struggling because of, you know, the high-paced rhythm that they are actually encountering, trying so hard to achieve and to prove themselves out there. The other thing that I've seen, especially with entrepreneurs, and allow me to focus more on entrepreneurs, because when you look to mental health challenges, when it comes to entrepreneurs, it's actually higher than any other career field. Actually, statistics tell us that it's around 82%. And these are figures here in Africa. So now we cannot put a blind eye to this conversation. So for entrepreneurs, you'll see some element of financial strain. And I think this is so true. Do you remember when you're setting out your first, your first business? I remember my first business. It was around 2013, thereabout. I just cleared med school, and it was quite exciting. And it was something totally different from, mental health or anything. It was a passion that I love, and that's music. And so setting out a studio, and it was quite a task, putting up everything that was needed to ensure that this studio runs. Oh, by the way, you remember the part of telling you that I lost the business? Maybe we'll revisit again. This is the business my first business that I actually lost. And we parted ways with the partner, and he took everything, and you're left there hanging dry. So that's something that we get to see, a financial constraint where you pump in everything that you have, your savings, because that seed capital can be a bit hard to raise sometimes. You'll pick some money from your family, from your own savings. And so this is some of the things that is sort of normalized, because you're told pump in all the money with hopes that the business will return back. And sometimes it doesn't return back as fast as we imagined as men. And utajipiga kifua ama vipi na tusonge mbele. And tukisonga mbele, hapo mbele unakutana na kitu kama stress and anxiety imekungoja, imekuangalia, which is a big thing here in Kenya, in Nairobi, and in Africa wide, whereby you find individuals have pumped in more time, you're overworking yourself, you're overexerting your body. And so burnout checks in because you've been living life on the fast lane. And sometimes we really don't know how to remove our foot off the gas pedal. And it's quite sad as men when we are forced, maybe by ailments or maybe by a marriage that is almost on the brink of collapse, that you realize, oh, I need to slow down. And so that constant pressure that comes from your business, from your job, you have those deadlines to meet. If you're working in the NGO sector, you have this donor who needs this report by this particular time. And that particular time, it's always constant pressure. I'm not mentioning names here. All right. You know yourselves. And so you find yourself experiencing this stress and burnout, plus other things that are happening, from your relationship side. Might be this girlfriend that you're seeing, that things are not working out because you're not giving them, enough bandwidth. and they need time and you're not giving them that. And then there is one last thing that a lot of men struggle from, and it's called imposter syndrome, where you feel that you are not adequate enough and you doubt your abilities. You get to have these imaginary thoughts that come to you. And I always tell people that, it's not actually an enemy. Sometimes it can be a friend. And I think we'll talk about that in a short while as well. And so these are some of the things that we get to see. And from a biblical standpoint, I think we as men, we have been charged with the responsibility of being priests in our home. If you're married and you're watching this, that's what God calls us to do, to be priests in our home, to love our wives as Jesus Christ loved the church. And sometimes that tends to be a bit hard because you think by me overexerting myself, then I'll be able to become a better provider. By me not putting a blind eye to a couple of things and sweeping some things under the rug. If you were tuning in last week, you remember that, how we sweep things under the rug and sometimes it creates a mountain. Then you feel like, okay, I got things sorted out. But sometimes all you need to do is come out clean and share some of the things and show your vulnerability, which I think we ended up saying that it's something that is very, very key for you as a man to do, to be vulnerable. What do you do in moments that you cannot provide? Where do you run to? How do you navigate life when you can no longer protect? Tough questions. Over to you.
I love those questions. And hopefully, Paul, you will tell us a little bit about how you've managed to navigate through this space, especially entrepreneurship space, with all these, nuances around, income, making income, imposter syndrome, and the realization of, okay, am I actually in the right place? Am I actually doing the right thing? And just before you answer the next question that I want to ask, I want to welcome everyone who has joined us. Thank you so much. We have just started this conversation. And thank you, Dr. Moses, for sharing that perspective around, what the African society has normalized for a lot of men, the part of provision, finances, and all that. And I remember seeing my dad being in that space because at some point he lost his job, his corporate job, and then he had to go to entrepreneurship. He had to put all his money into that. And it was really, really such a difficult space for him. So, I mean, Paul, you have a lot of experience in the entrepreneurship world, and you have experienced all these ups and downs, intermittent income. I'm sure also imposter syndrome. You will tell us about it. So, is this a reality that you've accepted? And have you ever experienced heightened pressure and stress? And how did you decompress, or how did you deal with the pressure and the stress?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rahel, and very tough questions from Dr. Macharia earlier on. So yeah, so just to give sort of like a background to my experience, Capital One Group was really, created in the middle of COVID. Yes, you may have started about 5+ years ago, but it wasn't up until I think mid of 2019 when I started focusing on it full time. So 9 months, into into this whole new world and experience, COVID hit. So it was built through COVID and post-COVID. I do know there are a few things which um, we haven't been able to achieve because of those very many tough years that we had. And so one of the things that we really went through was, as you said, intermittent income. So the way you've set up the business to provide services to the clients isn't the way the economy is sort of like showing you or giving you time to actually do that. So building a business during COVID was one of the toughest things that I've ever done. It was very, very, very mental, and it was also very feasible in terms of just the time that I had to focus on the business and make sure that it actually doesn't break or doesn't fail. At that time, you've got employees, you've got clients, you've got your family, and then your friends, and other people that you need to give time to, but you never quite seem to be having enough time for not only yourself but also your family. As Dr. Macharia said earlier, we, as men in entrepreneurship, it's still quite a lot of time. And then secondly, you never quite seem to be having enough money, because either the way you set up the business, from my experience, you really had to cut down prices in terms of the value that you're providing to the clients, and how much do you charge for that. So you find yourself that most of the time you're either in negatives, and even when you're in negatives, you really are not getting as much as you had hoped. So you're really bootstrapping along the way. So you asked, have I sort of like accepted this? Well, every moment goes through phases, and I think the realization that that phase of COVID, first of all, was going to pass, because going through COVID and everything that I read and interacted with people, there were going to be two phases. So the first phase was going to be COVID, and the effect on on our business, on the world, on the economy and everything like that. And then there was going to be the post COVID effect, which then, yes, the epidemic may have passed and things moved on, but there are few teething issues which will not move on, and it will take some time before the world resets to back to where it was. I mean, that mental understanding that we are hopefully going through the last stages of the second stage of that process. But it's been really tough, and it really takes on quite, quite a toll. So as I was saying, and also Dr. Macharia alluded to this, we've got so many centers of responsibility and so many centers of, can I say, return. So responsibilities in terms of what you're supposed to be doing, and then also return in terms of what you're supposed to be giving back. And one of the things that you're supposed to be giving back as men is time and resources. Not to say that the ladies don't do it, but since we are looking at the perspective of the man has more to do in terms of the general responsibilities, and then also what you're supposed to give back in terms of return. And that struggle between time and money is one of the biggest challenges that anyone, men aside, that anyone can actually have, where you think you don't have enough time to do everything that you're supposed to be doing, to give time to the ones that you love, and also at the same time, you don't have enough resources to actually meet your short-term and your long-term plans. Now that changes with time, and it does, how you go through that process is what determines what's going to be there for you at the end. So there's that quote which is say, winners never quit and quitters never win. And unfortunately, that's a practice of this entrepreneurship thing, whereby you just have to keep on going, because then you never know when your break is going to come. And then also, the longer you are in it, the easier it gets in terms of just a few mistakes that you make in the early years, you're able to correct them as you move along. But then also with the faith and trust in God that whatever you're doing is right, and everything is going to fall, with time, and everything is going to get better even as you move along. There's some things that obviously you can't replace, and that is lost time. And so it's something that you can never take back, but you do it knowing that there's a bigger purpose and there's a bigger vision that you're living for, and that bigger purpose and vision is what ultimately comes at that price. It's something that we can't ignore.
Yeah, and I mean, I hear you on that. And maybe one thing that I want to ask, which is the second part of the question, is how did you deal with it? Because one of the things that we learned last week was is it five pandemics that men have, or the experiences that men have that lead them to certain behaviors. And I mean, we have spouses here, and some who will watch this conversation later on. We have friends here of men in different circles. We have sisters to brothers and all that. And some of the things that were shared last week in terms of the pandemics was, number one, alcoholism, number two, marijuana use. So that's substance abuse. Then there's Dr. Moses, please remind me. There's loneliness, there's gambling,
Gambling,
and then there's sex as the last thing. So you use that as a coping mechanism to sort of, just hide from the realities that you're facing instead of actually addressing them face on. So, I mean, I know this is a public forum and some things are quite private and very sensitive, but maybe you can share, not necessarily in the 5 areas, but maybe some of the things that you did to sort of cope with some of the stresses that came with being, opening a business during the COVID era, or trying to build up a business during the COVID era. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, as I said, I can put it in a nutshell. So I had both the negative and positive ways and handling. The negative ways obviously came earlier, because then it was like a shock. What was happening? COVID comes, and you realize that, hey, you're in the middle of building up a business. There's no going back. You can't throw your hands in the air and say, man, this thing I'm done. You can't go back and ask for your old job. You just have to go through it. So I had some negative ways in which I handled the initial, phases of that, very difficult time in COVID. And then later on, I adapted to more positive ways, which was basically taking care of my health. So I started walking and running, something that I still do up to now, just to help me manage that. But I was very, 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 very blessed to have a supportive spouse who actually helped me, especially when funds were low. She was, I normally say that she was our loan shark, basically just making sure, hey, the office is running, the home is running, and when things got better, sort her out. So it was by her sheer kindness, and I think by selecting well, that we actually went through that phase, and it was very, very hard from a financial point of view. When I look back and think if I was to ever do it again, even people, whenever they tell me that they want to quit their jobs and join entrepreneurship, I'm like, why do you want to come to this hard life of ours? Just stay where you are, be a very good employee, hit your targets, make your boss shine, and just, relax and be in your very comfortable world. Because then it puts quite a lot of strain in trying to achieve a dream and a vision. As an entrepreneur, it puts a lot of strain to the rest of the family. So again, ways of coping. You also get to lean and know quite a lot about yourself, in the sense of what helps you cope with something, and what doesn't. Something else that also, from a business and operational point of view, I was lucky to have a board. So the board of advisors actually really helped us navigate during that very tough time during COVID. And this board basically was a very good sounding board to us as directors, to myself, the person leading the team. And that also, I got to learn that you need to surround yourself with people who've gone through worse so that they can actually remind you that you're not alone and also help you during that tough time. A lot of what they provided was a lot of advisory, a lot of counseling, a lot of mentorship. And without that board, I think it would have been harder to actually sail through that sort of like tough period. It's better days now in terms of even just having a spiritual outlook with everything that happens around you. It also does help. A simple things like listening to a sermon, going to church, listening to some, praise and worship, listening to music also, whatever music genre that you love, that also helps quite a lot. But the for me, the support came right from the home front, from my partner, and then also just being mentally strong. Every time I just go home, I say this every time I just go home, like I feel like I'm at peace, like with the family, and they're the only people who don't ask you everything else that the world is asking you. They just want you there. So that's how I was able to cope, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I love those perspectives. And I mean, we thank God for supportive spouses, supportive partners, friends, and just even being open to the reality that is around us. I think it's one of the key steps to just, managing or coping with all these challenges. So I'm really glad that you're in a good place. And as I said, thank you to everyone who supported you and everyone who supports the men in their lives, because it is important. And you've actually mentioned something really great, and we'll talk about it at some point about, being in an environment that is peaceful. Because sometimes when we are going through all this, and I mean, I'm talking from my perspective, but I'm sure for men as well, and this is one thing that keeps coming out in a lot of conversations, is they want an environment that is peaceful, because that's what helps them to even keep going. But anyway, we'll come to that at some point. So, Dr. Moses, you talked about this when we were starting, and you talked about men tying their self-worth to their achievements, experiencing imposter syndromes and all that. And sometimes with this self-worth mentality, it can be so hard for men to set boundaries and recognize when it's time to slow down, right? Because again, men are built to be providers. They want to come out and shine and say, I did this, I did that. They want to be top 40, under 40 for some of them. They want to hang certificates in their houses. They want their women to look at them and think, oh my goodness, this is the man that is in my life. But sometimes that's to their detriment, right? To the detriment of their mental health. So what signs should men look for when their drive is too much and it's becoming a detriment to their mental health?
Wow, that's a tough one. It's a tough one because I'm a man. And for the longest time, I tied who I am to my identity over what I do. And that's not necessarily very true, because what I do is not really who I am. And the journey of self-discovery is one that I would encourage any man listening in to this. You should try it out. And I think it's something that I can hear even from Paul's life that he has gone through. And so it's something that I would really, really encourage you to do. And so, men, we love being celebrated. Ladies, if you're on this platform, by the way, I know we are supposed to have a date with you, but please, if you have a man, please celebrate them. We really enjoy it when, we take the car to the car wash and it comes back clean, or we have fueled the car and you tell us thank you. Oh, you have done well. Jamani, ukifanya tu hivyo jamani, utakuwa unaona hiyo peaceful environment ya Paul utaanza ku-create. And you won't leave out, Proverbs 21:19, all right? Which I think we shall come back to at some point. And so some of the things that a man can look out for is sometimes when we are pushing so hard, then just like Paul has alluded, we start dropping balls. And that means, the people that we care really about, we're not giving them enough time. And it's not for the worst or the bad things. No, it's because we really want to make you happy. We really want to make these people feel seen, feel heard, and feel excited about life. The other thing is isolation. I think you were sharing about your dad. And one of the things that I quickly noticed, and I can echo something I actually mentioned last week, is men tend to be isolated. And so you are just as good as a provider, but not really as a person. Not really many people know what's going behind your head and your mind, what's happening there. And then there is a self-esteem thing that comes to play. So that's the other thing that I get to see a lot with men. So where is your self-esteem? What drives your self-esteem? Is it the fact that you have succeeded, in raising that Series A or B, or, steering your company or your organization as a manager to productivity and profitability? Or it might be, for some, it's their family, having this son who has excelled in this just exams that tumemaliza. Unajua hatu tu exams tumefanya na kuna zingine zinaendelea. I know a famous statement from the past. I don't know if it's still applicable now. Mtoto bright ni pride ya mzee, lakini akiwa kidogo pale kimasomo amepungukiwa, anakuwa mzigo na shida ya mama. I'm not trying to mention names or point fingers, but we know this statement very well growing up in the 844 system. This was very, very true. And so the other thing is constant anxiety that men have. And this is driven by, again, the self-esteem or self-worth. How's your self-worth? Your mental fatigue. Sometimes I think you overexert yourself, that you have nothing to give from your fountain. You have nothing more to give to the people that you really, really care about. I think one of the things that I can quickly pick over from what Paul has said, and that's very, very critical, is the element of relationships that come to play when we think about, our success as men, when we think about our self-worth. Our relationship really, really play a big role. And so how are your relationship? And I think today I'll be throwing lots of questions to us to just ponder upon. And feel free, to come back to the chat and actually type, what are some of your thoughts? Don't fear, it's a safe space. Just type down and we will reach out to you even post this. Thank you.
Yeah. And I love what you shared about some of the symptoms, and you've talked about isolation. And I mean, Dr. Moses, I'm speaking for all the women here and who will watch later on. When you talk about isolation, for me, what came to mind, and I actually wrote it down, was the nothing box. We are told a lot about the nothing box, where men just want to go into their space to think. So what's the difference between isolation and going to the nothing box? Is it the same thing? And the self-esteem part, when the self-esteem is very low, there's an element of overcompensating because, you want to still feel like you still got it. And I've seen this with a lot of men, including my own family members. So how do we differentiate between, number one, isolation and being in the nothing box, and then number two, the self-esteem going down and the overcompensation? Because we are trying to also understand the men in our lives. We are also trying to understand the men in leadership where we work, the organizations that we work, and even in our environments generally.
Wow. Isolation versus the nothing box. For men, one of the things that we were cultured was we were told that you keep things to yourself. Jiweke. All right? Jiweke, do not cry. Mwanaume ni effort, mwanaume ni nguvu. Those were some of the stereotypes. You remember the first question that Rahel asked? Actually, those were some of the things that were passed down as an African man, that mwanaume ni effort, mwanaume ni nguvu. Keep things to yourself. If you are dying, kufa kijeshi. Ukigongwa, ukibleed, usilie. We jikaze, struggle through it. And what that ended up doing, it ended up chipping away the authenticity of this particular man. And some of the things that men quickly learned, especially my generation and the past, is you really, as long as things are working out, you really don't have to rock the boat. Just let things be, and so keep things to yourself, and you really don't have to overshare. There are things like women have this X amount of words to say in a day, and men, we have this X amount to say in a day. Tafakari ya babu, tutarudi. But those are some of the things that were fed to us, that, you have to keep things to yourself. And so, according to what Nelson Naseri told us, as the 5 pandemic affecting men here in Nairobi, the last one, which was loneliness, where all these other things were anchored on, created something very, very interesting. Because men will always isolate and be lonely. In entrepreneurship, we say that it's always lonely at the top. And so, the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. It's lonely up there. And that's why, sometimes particular car brands have 2 seats while the rest have 5. All right. And so, as you said, the second bit, nothing box. A man thrives sometimes in just sitting in solitude. And we can sit and look into the sky and feel really, really good. It's our way of recharge. It doesn't mean I am isolating myself. It just generally means it might be my time to just think, or to just count sheep. You know how people count sheep in your head? They just happen to exist, and they're not thinking about anything. If you ask them, what are you thinking about? They really don't have anything, because tunaitanga zone. Uko tu zone. Unajua, una exist, uko tu zone, everything is fine. And it's sort of like a way to recharge. And this is something that happens with most men. Is it scientific proven? Not really. And we shall come back to that. But again, isolation comes from the sense of, lots of us men, we really don't have genuine, authentic relationships. And that stems from all that we tend to do, all that we tend to carry, the baggages that we tend to carry. And we really don't feel secure because of how we were cultured. And I hope you don't forget that. How you were cultured, how you were brought up as a child, plays a very big role in how you do life today, in how you lead in that particular organization, in how you do your relationships with your friends, with your partners, with your family members, and the people that you really, really care about, and your children. How you are brought up, how you are cultured really affects these kinds of relationship. And so what ends up happening, coming back to self-esteem and overcompensation, when my self-esteem is low, I try to find a fix, and I might find a fix in, some of these things. So I might end up being the best gambler in the world. I might end up being, mse mwenye anaweza take tei more than any other party, because I'm trying to sort of overcompensate, even in relationships, because I am not being a better spouse, a better boyfriend, a better leader in this organization. So I give incentives. I might say, hey, guys, we're going out for fun. Why are we going out for fun? Why aren't we addressing the key issues that are affecting individuals' productivity in the organization? You try to do things in a way so that you cover some spots and people don't really see your weakness. FYI, men don't like to show their weakness. And that's why we ended last week saying, you need to be vulnerable as a man. You need to open up to someone. You need those 4 kind of people I say that you need in your corner to create sort of a family or a community that gets to surround you and help you navigate through various issues of life.
Awesome. I really love that. And if you've just joined us, we are having this conversation around men and mental health in the area of career and entrepreneurship. And just to get into the next question to you, Paul, and I'll combine the self-worth element with the lonely journey, especially in entrepreneurship. Have you ever felt this pressure, right? Where you feel like you cannot slow down because there's a level of perceived responsibility. And it's not even perceived responsibility. There is responsibility to your employees because you're a leader, and to your family because you're the priest in that house. Have you ever felt this pressure? How did you exhibit this pressure? And did people actually mention to you some behaviors that they noticed during that period? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, man, the moments where you want to slow down and you can't. The early days of building a business are very, very hard, because then what you're basically trying to do is put things in motion, put a number of things in motion, um, put the theory that you have for the business in motion, and make it work. You're trying to sell a service, so no one has heard of you or your company. You're also trying to fine tune who do you sell to, the brands which you think will really take on the service, and then they tell you, hey, we don't need this. There's competition in the market. So there's quite a lot that you need to do. And the time that it takes leads you into a never-ending spiral of you need to work on this, you need to work on it, you need to work on it. So any slowdown can mean that everything comes to a halt, and it's quite it's quite strange, but this is part of the process. Till you're able to build the business up until you can either step back a little bit or delegate, or maybe let's say do something else as other things are running. Now, the risk of slowing down is that if you slow down, things may stop or pause. Or if you slow down, there's an element of comfort which comes in case you slow down, which means that you need to keep on going. Now, that level of responsibility, it's actually not perceived, but for some people, it's higher than others, and that pressure comes, and that dedication is seen with the way you handle something, the way maybe a mistake can be done, and you need it corrected, and so you keep giving more and more time, and it reaches a point where if you do slow down, the momentum that you've built actually goes down, or the results with which you have been seeing, the momentum goes down, the results also go down. I remember a time when we had quite heavy pitching for business in 2020 and 2021, and most of the leads that we got in 2020, 2021, 2022, and part of even 2023 were off the motions that we had in 2020 and 2021. And so there was a little bit of a slowdown, and that slowdown, I can tell you, looking back, I can see where that slowdown may have affected us, the business. But any slowdown by anyone, whether yourself or even as part of the team, can affect the success, the eventual success of the business, with all factors being held constant. But you've got a responsibility, first of all, to your family. They're the people that you get out, wake up every day because you have to provide, whether you're going into a job or whether you're going into entrepreneurship or whether you're going into farming, whatever it is. The reason why you wake up most of the time for many men is actually to provide. Then you've got a responsibility also to your employees, the people that you said, hey, can you come and join me in this journey? You've got another responsibility to your clients, who you said, if you give me this job, we're going to deliver, and you can't fail to deliver. So again, all those responsibilities means that you cannot slow down. I laugh and joke that it's very easy for someone who's employed in a day job to actually go on leave and say, hey, put an auto respond on email and say, I'm off for the next 2 weeks. In case you want to call me, here's my colleague's number. For entrepreneurs, um, first of all, there's nothing called leave. Um, it's basically stepping a little bit aside to do other things, but you can never say that you're going to get a break, because then you never know when that one call or that one email that you've been waiting for is actually going to come. So you sort of like prepare yourself for it. You're also trying to, balance so many things at the same time. So you never quite think that you have enough time. So again, those are some of the struggles that we normally have in terms of slowing down and just wanting to put everything down. Now, did people give me feedback on any behaviors that they noticed of me during that time? I think many people did not, because they didn't see me quite a lot. During my building phase, I can tell you even up to now, I've lost quite a lot in terms of the usual people that I used to see when I was employed. And most of the people who see me right now, if it's not people in my family, it is maybe clients who've seen me the most, or my colleagues who've seen me the most. The friends I've not seen in quite a long while. People who we used to go with, to church, fellowship, um, friends and colleagues in the industry, unless you may be having a professional event or an industry night, and that's when you get to see them. But life does quite change, because then your head is down and you're trying to really concentrate on building this thing. And so any behaviors that anyone notices is immediately, it's just your family which notices those behaviors. So there'll be comments like, are you not going to work today? Then you'll explain, say, oh no, I'm working from home. Or, oh, I know you're going for this meeting today. How come you've not gone for it? Or just checking, because then you get into a routine where your family gets to know how your days are. And so when you're not in that routine, then they always ask and ask questions and say, is everything okay? Because that's when they get to notice that there's something wrong or odd, with your schedule and things like that. The best person to know, or the best way to know if signs or if things are really changing or moving, is if what you've been trying to change has actually changed. So if there's a problem that you're trying to sort out within the business, has it changed? Is there a new problem? If the problem hasn't changed, then you know that you're not moving, no matter how fast you're moving or how much time you're taking. So apart from the behavior change, there's also the aspect of the business, which then you need to be seeing that it's constantly moving and that you've sorted a problem and not coming back to it again. If you need to sort it out 2 or 3 times, then there's a major problem. In terms of slowing down, summary, at times we don't have the luxury of doing that. But hopefully we will, with more systems and structures, run into place. Because I'll tell you, it's not easy to build a business, especially a service business, and now where the scientists and data analysts have actually done the math and said that that you really had a good run if you maybe hit 5 years in your business, and if you can hit 10, then there's a very high chance that you may see it to the next 20. So the early years are very, very critical, and very hard to slow down as for the reasons that I've given, but quite equally taxing, not only to yourself, but also to the family that loves to see you more often than not.
Yeah, and that's why men need a lot of support in that area, especially when they're building. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that. So as we come to the end of this conversation, Dr. Moses, let me ask, how can men start striking a balance between pursuing their career ambitions and prioritizing their well-being? Looking at all these things that we've talked about, right? Self-worth, the drive, imposter syndrome, provision, that pressure, and all that. Yeah.
Thank you. Something that men can do, and I think some will be as quick as you can pick this and run with tomorrow morning, would be something that's already, this is in the long term, and I want to echo what Paul has just shared, setting systems and structures in place. For most entrepreneurs, as he said, as an entrepreneur out and out, is they never get time to rest. Your foot is always on the gas pedal. And so one of the things that I would really encourage an entrepreneur who's watching, especially a man who is pushing himself, pushing beyond limits, beyond any kind of belief, sometimes the belief goes even beyond your family and you're just alone, is would you set up the systems and structures for the business? Would you get comfortable with the people that you have hired? These are superstar employees that you chose in the business to come and see this vision come to fruition. Would you trust them to delegate some particular roles? And that speaks into the element of boundaries. So setting healthy boundaries, and that comes with set clear working hours. I know for entrepreneurs it's a bit hard, but this is something that I keep on encouraging them to do. What is your stipulated work hour? And if you say you will start working from 7 a.m. All the way till 6 a.m., then you give the family and your spouse and your significant other this other amount of time. Well and good. Have time to refuel. And I think one of the things that most entrepreneurs and most business people, especially guys in management, top management, struggle with is that setting healthy boundaries. Personal effectiveness. So set out, task priority matrices on setting out how your tasks are going to be, looking like, which are some of the urgent and important things that you really need to get to take care of them, and which are some of the things that you might need to pack. You really don't have to touch everything. You just need to align how your work is going to look like for productivity. Self-care is something that I would encourage each and everyone to do. Paul mentioned, something like listening to music and going to church and listening to a sermon was, some of the things that got him anchored when he was going through it. What are some of the things that refuel you as a person? And I would like for you to, if you have a notebook right now or a place to write, get that place and write down. What are some of the things that, fuels you up? Would it be listening to music? Would it be a sport that you really, really love and you want to connect back to? Would it be, things like going for a hike, engaging with nature, which I would encourage you as a man to do because it's really, really important. The other thing that is very critical is also developing a supportive network. You need a network of friends, and I will still drum up support for those 4 people in your corner. For Paul, he had a board, who could help him stay grounded. And probably you are a startup. As a startup, one of the myths, as Rael, you asked early, when we're starting out, some of the things that were passed down. One of the things that was passed down, especially for entrepreneurs, is you are a superhero. You are the marketer, you're the CEO, you're the CFO, you are everything. No, you are not. You are not. And sometimes all you need is actually getting people from your network who can help you in this. It might be friends. For some, it might be hiring, on a need basis, consultants who help you with accounting. Your friends, I would say, leverage on those relationships and those networks to help you navigate through various things. You might have a friend who's good at accounting. You might have a friend who can give you some amazing ideas when it comes to marketing. You cannot do everything on your own. And I know for a lot of startups, you keep on trying to do all these things alone. Sometimes you need people around you. And that's the power of a supportive network, ladies and gentlemen, on this call, because I know the ladies are also here as well. So these are some of the things that I would encourage you to do. And lastly, because I'm a therapist, I have to drum up support for my very own, especially guys who are in the industrial and organizational space, is seek help. Seek help. Help is readily available. I know at the very top it's lonely. Sometimes you don't have a place to go and just decompress, but you can go see a therapist and actually have conversation, share out your fears. And in entrepreneurship, I promise you, the fears are so many. There are so many, and that's the reason why, we pretend, we isolate, we have these things that we try to hide and mask, because sisi ni Mama Mende, people cannot see us failing. These are our people. You can have issues delegating that particular task because this is your baby. You saw it, coming to birth, and you can't really fully trust someone else to do things the way you would do. So go seek out therapy. That's something I would encourage you to do. Would you actually mark your calendar for this coming year, this Q1 2025, and say, one of the things I'm going to do, and I get a lot of men who come to me and say, I'm coming to therapy, but I really don't know what we're going to talk about. And when we start exploring various things, we start exploring the business, and we move from the business to you as a person. And they're like, wow. I didn't know this would actually help me. You remember the 4 people? Let me remind you. Number 1, you need a mentor. Someone who is not a coach. Don't mix the two. Someone who will help you navigate through various things. Number 2, you need a coach. And number 3, you need a peer. Someone, you have shared interests, who you can bounce ideas and issues, and they can give you insight. You can always engage with them on a day-to-day basis. And number 4, you need a therapist. This is an amazing community of people who will help you navigate through various issues of life. Thank you.
Wow, I really, really love that. And I know last week, Dr. Moses, we talked about how women, because we surround men as well. We have spouses, we have friends, brothers, fathers, and all that. How we can better support them, because one of the things that really drive men not to seek out help, especially when they're going through mental health challenges, is the labeling, right? Is the fact that the society has taught them that when you speak out, you are weak, right? So I think that element also of supporting the men in our lives, whether it's the person who's above us at work, our partners, and all that. I think we need to start not reinforcing, but reaffirming. Yes, reaffirming them, especially when they're feeling a type of way, or when they express certain emotions that you think, my man should not be doing this, or this guy should not be doing this. They are also human beings, and they have feelings. So let's listen, let's support as women, because I know women are on this particular live. So we need to support the men around us. much better than we do. And just before I go to Paul with the last question, I'd like to encourage you to share this video. It's on YouTube. We are live on YouTube. So please share with people around you. Subscribe to Stories and Conversations with Rahel, because this series still continues next week. And next week, we'll be talking about a topic that I know everyone is really interested about: relationships. And I'll still have Dr. Moses come in to obviously share his professional expertise. So mark your calendars next week, 7:30 p.m., same time, same place, YouTube and here on Zoom. We'll be talking about men and mental health in relationships. So, Paul, as we finalize this conversation, and I know we've not touched on a lot of things, and hopefully we'll have this conversation again, probably next year or some other time. But just as we end the conversation, one last question for you, because I mean, you're the one who's sharing with us the practical ways you've managed to navigate through this entrepreneurship space. Is there any strategy that you have employed, or something that you're thinking about, that you've had, that you think is good for men to start thinking about to manage their well-being and also the loneliness that they experience as they navigate their careers and entrepreneurship?
Okay. So in terms of coping, one of the things that I found works very well is running. So walking, running, if you can, cycle, swim, just do a lot to take care of your body and also to give you that break from work, that break from people, from family, anything that just allows you to be alone, and you can use that sort of like alone time to also sort of like decompress. If you're not someone who enjoys running or doing different kind of sports alone, I mean, you can do football, you can do basketball. Just do something that helps you do or take you out of your normal 8 to 5 mode, but also just to make sure that it's adding something positive to you. So the benefit of running, it's well documented. The benefit of walking, it's well documented. So try and do something, yes, as a hobby, but also taking care of your body because it's quite important. Because that's our health is very, very critical. And what you have to do is just make sure that your body is fine, because you need it for the pressure that you have in this kind of environment that we're in. So that's the first thing that I've seen that really, really, really works. The second one is to do your best to train, coach, and mentor your team, so that then, as you're putting up systems and structures, it will also allow you to buy back, some time. So I can't remember the podcast that I listened to, but someone said that as you're growing as an entrepreneur, you need to start buying back your time. So things that may keep you in the office for 2, 3, 4 hours later, try and see how best can you get someone to do that and actually buy back that time and spend it, with family, with your loved ones, doing something else. So again, it's quite important that we do that. And so that's a hack that I have tried my best to, implement, but again, I'll get there with time and with the patience that it's taking. Number 3, I found that having something, designed to pray or to seek help from also works quite well. So I do know that in this world that we're in, we cannot do it alone, and at times we need, most of the time, all the time, let me say, we need divine help. And that divine help from God, Allah, Buddha, whoever it is that you subscribe to. It's important that that divine help. It's always a moment of weakness, of saying, "Hey God, I can't do this thing alone. Can you please help me?" Or it really does help. Whether God does come and help you or not, that's a different thing. But just that act of being very vulnerable and saying, God, come and help me in this, is something that just helps put the weight off you. So it's interestingly, I found religion, or God, seeking God, especially in places that you don't know where He's going to come from, really helping. You can be praying for a cash miracle and it takes even longer, and it doesn't come through. But the fact that you've just been vulnerable and you feel more relaxed and more at ease because you've actually done that request and that praying and that um, being vulnerable and asking for help from divine help. It really, really, really does help. Yeah, as usual, take care of your family. Be present when you're with them, and I think the rest will just take care of itself. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. And God always helps. Even though some answers can take a bit of time, He always comes through. So thank you so much, gentlemen. But before finally we stop this conversation, please tell us where people can find you. Dr. Macharia, if a gentleman wants to reach out to you, because they want to discuss more about how they can take care of themselves in terms of their mental health, how can they reach out to you, or where can they find you?
Great. Thank you, Rael. I sit at NTM Sidai Wellness Sanctuary. That's where I can be found on physical location. We are located out in Karen, Rura Lane. Also, you can get me through my socials at Dr. Moses Macharia on Instagram and Moses Macharia on LinkedIn. And also, on mail, mashariakarani@gmail.com. That's my personal one, and I've shared it out. All right.
Awesome. Paul, you are an entrepreneur, and probably someone wants to understand how to navigate that space. How can they reach out to you? And maybe you can share a little bit more about Capital One, and if someone wants to reach out, how they can find you guys.
Okay. So the easiest way to reach me is a phone call or a DM. I'm very old school, old SMS. If you WhatsApp me, man, my WhatsApp is a mess. I'll be very honest, my WhatsApp is a mess. So so the easiest way is just to get me on phone. So if you're in Kenya, that's +254 702 931 932. 702 931 932. If you're in Uganda, +256 776 888 750. That's 0776 888 750. If you forget, the numbers or anything, you can find me on socials. You can just do a Google search for Paul Mwirigi Muriongi. Just make sure you don't click on the MP, because there's an MP who has a name similar to mine. So please don't disturb him with things that are not concerning him. Yeah, just make sure you look for the face. Yeah. So what we do as Capital One, we do public relations, we do digital marketing, we do creative work, and we also do public affairs, support with ESG comms. So yeah, if you just need your brand to look good, please talk to us, and we'll be happy to assist. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And remember, if you have any questions, you can DM us. You can send us a direct message on any of our social media platforms. We are actually on all of them. As old as I am, I'm also on TikTok. But I mean, we have to we have to reach out to the Gen Zs. So reach out to us on direct message. I know this is again a sensitive topic. A lot of men are not so outright in trying to express themselves, which we understand. So if you really have that burning question, please share with us on DM, and I will forward it to especially Dr. Macharia. And if there's anything related to business, also share with us, and I can forward that to Paul. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining. And for the ones who watch later, please subscribe, share, and like this video. This is how it reaches out to so many people, because we need to start talking about all these things, especially all these areas that have been normalized in the African society. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a sign off from us. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, guys. We are done. It's now.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahel, for having us, and thank you.